My name is Rilla. I just turned 45 the other day. My skin might be showing a few signs of age, but I'm still fighting back and having a blast every day. I won't let the young ones outdo me. Today, I want to tell you about a time in my life when I hit not just a turning point, but a dead end. This happened nearly 15 years ago. Back then I was working in sales at a major corporation, living days that were anything but heartwarming. They were hard. Daytime was spent visiting clients, evenings filled with overtime for paperwork, and on days off, I'd get calls about troubles or consultations from customers. I practically had no days off. It was so busy that even with money, I had no time to spend it. Then one day, out of the blue, I quit! I quit! I felt like saying, that's it. I'm done, and decided to cut ties with the company. It was because I wanted to take better care of myself. My family and childhood friends said, it's good you didn't ruin your health, so I think it was the right choice. However, once I resigned, I found myself without a clear idea of what I wanted to do, and my job search didn't really take off. After much thought, I decided, I have no savings, so I'll work part-time and give myself time to think about my next job. So, I chose to be a kitchen assistant at a cafeteria in an office building run by a major furniture manufacturer. That's where I met Sid, my husband who is 3 years younger than me. Sid, also in sales, would come to the cafeteria at times different from everyone else because of his work. Whenever I was wiping tables, Sid always made sure to talk to me. At first, I found it annoying, but as he persistently approached me without concern, I gradually became attracted to him, and eventually we started dating. We clicked in conversation, and Sid's cheerful personality was surprisingly comfortable to be around. That's why I immediately accepted his marriage proposal. Of course, I never thought this would be the start of my troubles. When I nervously went to his parents' house to announce our marriage, I was interrupted by Sid's mother, Aretha. Aretha said, "You're Rilla, the part-timer." Her expression seemed somewhat intimidating. Feeling like I was being evaluated, I responded, "Yes, hello, nice to meet you." After Aretha gave me an up-and-down look saying, "Come in," and smiled as she led me to the living room. Her face was smiling, but somehow her eyes weren't. And did she really need to emphasize that I'm part-time? Sure, I am part-time, but there seemed to be a sting in her words. But Sid seemed unconcerned, so maybe she's just got a scary face. That's what I decided to think. I hear you're older than Rilla. Haven't you talked about marriage before? As I was about to eat the steak that was served, Aretha said that. Not understanding Aretha's intention, I blurted out, "Huh?" in a dumbfounded voice. "Well, you're of a certain age, aren't you? My son is still in his 20s. Do you really get along with Rilla?" "It's fine, I don't interact with her much. I'll protect you." But from Aretha's expression and the atmosphere, it didn't sound reassuring at all. It felt like she was saying very politely, "Don't mess with my young son." Well, I heard that Sid's father passed away early and Aretha raised him all by herself. I can somewhat understand her not wanting to easily hand over her beloved son to a stranger, though it was Sid who made the moves. But today was an important day, so I decided to bear it a bit and didn't argue back. I dodged the awkward questions with a smile, feeling grateful for Sid changing the mood with his jokes, and somehow managed to get through the day. After a while, the day of the wedding arrived. I was in the waiting room just before the start of the ceremony. Suddenly, I realized I was alone with Aretha in the waiting room, as everyone else had stepped out. I had seen Aretha a few times since our marriage introduction, but this was the first time we were alone together. I no longer felt her prickly attitude, but I was still nervous. Trying to ease the tension, I said, "It's been hectic, hasn't it? Are you tired, Aretha?" I started a conversation. Well, yeah, but more than that, you know. When you're of a certain age, even a wedding dress doesn't look all that beautiful." I was taken aback by her casual tone, as if she was talking about the weather. Excuse me? Oh, dear, don't take it the wrong way. You do look prettier than usual. Aretha's expression wasn't one of someone who meant to be malicious. It was the face of someone who couldn't help but let out her true feelings, unable to see the bride in front of her as beautiful. As I was at a loss for words from the sudden insult, "The ceremony is about to start, let's get ready!" Sid came into the waiting room with what seemed to be a staff member from the venue. Hearing that, Aretha said, "Oh, well then, Rilla, off you go," and left the room with the face of a good Aretha, as if nothing had happened. I see. Until now, Sid and my family were around, so she didn't say anything. I was completely reassured. But I wasn't really accepted. Maybe the marriage was rushed. Despite it being a grand occasion, I couldn't feel any happiness and just went through the ceremony. For a few months after the wedding, I had little to do with my in-laws. When I talked to Sid about what happened on the day of the wedding, "It's okay, we won't have to interact with them much. I'll protect you," he said, which gave me some comfort. I couldn't bring myself to tell my parents to avoid upsetting them, but I could vent to my childhood friend and felt better, and my relationship with Sid was good. If I just turned a blind eye to Aretha, I could think of this marriage as happy. Sometime later, my daughter Emily was born to Sid and me. Everyone was happy about the birth, but I couldn't help but doubt the sincerity of Aretha's joy. I wanted to avoid her as much as possible. This was just before Emily turned 1. One night, Aretha suddenly said, "I wanted to see Emily's face," and came to our house. Around this time, Sid often comes home late due to overtime, or sometimes didn't come home at all, so I was spending more time at home just with my daughter. Feeling uneasy about spending time with Aretha without Sid, but unable to refuse her entry to our home, I reluctantly let her in. As soon as she entered the room, Aretha said to me, "Oh, the cleaning in this room is better than I thought." She always had to add that extra comment. "How's childcare going? Any troubles?" A seemingly cooperative question came from Aretha, leaving me unsure of her intentions. Was I overthinking? "She's been crying less at night than I expected, which is a relief," I replied. "I see. Oh, here's something for you. You must be too busy to cook, right?" Saying this, Aretha handed over 3 small containers. One seemed to be a meal for children. Unbelievable. I never thought the day would come when Aretha would show such consideration. Emily's influence is amazing. Was Emily really that adorable? I realized I might have been too suspicious. "May I hold Emily for a bit?" "Please do. She would love that," I said, happily entrusting my daughter to her. "Oh, Emily, have you been well?" Aretha lifted my daughter in her arms. "Now, let's see you crawl a little." Then Aretha gently placed her on the floor. "Ah!" I exclaimed involuntarily. I was worried about how roughly she put the baby down on the floor. "Oh, doesn't this child crawl?" My daughter was rolling on the floor, laughing happily. "Crawl? She's actually already able to pull herself up to stand. Mother-in-law should know this from raising Sid, right?" But I couldn't say that, so instead I said gently, "She can even toddle around without support." And I gently replied, "Really? She doesn't seem like she wants to move from there at all. Isn't her development too slow?" No, I don't think she's slow. In fact, she's probably right on track, if not a bit ahead." "No, she's slow. Maybe having an older mother was a mistake. She looks like you. Not cute at all. Look, she's laughing as if she's looking down on someone." I never expected her to interpret an infant's laughter as something so negative. It dawned on me that this might have been what she wanted to say all along. "If only you were younger, maybe she would have been cuter and smarter. Such a child is no good." I felt ashamed for thinking Aretha had changed. She hadn't changed at all. She just came to find fault. "Emily is adorable and very important to us," I replied irritably, and Aretha calmly responded, "Is that so?" She replied, looking over my daughter as if appraising her. It was exactly like the time of our marriage introduction. I too had been assessed like this. It's clear that this person can't accept me. No, can't accept the presence of a daughter-in-law for her most beloved son. And hence, she can't find her granddaughter who carries her blood endearing either. I didn't mind whatever was said to me, but I wished my daughter didn't have to hear such foul words. Well, that's fine. I'm satisfied, so I'll be leaving now. I wanted to say she only came to complain, but was thankful she was leaving and saw her off with a smile. Aretha left. I opened the Tupperware she had given me. I was apprehensive about the contents, especially after being insulted. To my surprise, it contained nothing unusual, just frozen bread and marinated food. Under normal circumstances, the bread would be convenient, and the marinade, with its long shelf life, would be appreciated. Feeling like something tangy, I decided to try the marinade, albeit with some reluctance due to it being Aretha's gift. Oh, ew! I spat out what was in my mouth in haste. It was incredibly salty. The saltiness completely overpowered any sourness. What kind of seasoning was this? I was glad I didn't swallow it. Wondering if the bread was the same, I warmed it up to taste. But the bread was fine, nothing out of ordinary. Just the marinade then. I tore off a piece of the bread and gasped in surprise. The container were packed with chopped hot peppers. What? Mistaking the seasoning could happen, but the excessive amount of hot peppers, it was intentional. The covert attempt to feed this to someone. How despicable. The meal for the child at first glance looked like a finely chopped carrot risotto, but upon tasting, it was incredibly salty. All of it seemed to have a massive amount of salt added. I was relieved I hadn't fed it to my daughter without noticing. I realized Aretha never really thought of my daughter as her grandchild. She had only pretended to be happy all this time. I wasn't sad. I knew we weren't welcomed from the start, so this wasn't exactly new. More than anything, I felt a strong urge to protect my daughter. That night, when Sid came home a bit late, I showed him what Aretha had given us and told him about it. "Oh, sorry, I'm tired. Can we talk about this some other time?" Sid's response was not what I expected. He seemed annoyed. "What? Can't we do something about it?" Despite the seriousness of the situation, Sid seemed disinterested and kept playing with his phone. Lately, Sid doesn't even bother to hold the baby. Moreover, his treatment and words towards me have become rougher. Whenever I try to talk to him, "Oh, is that so?" he shows no interest in continuing the conversation. "Sorry, but I'm going to sleep." He often goes to the bedroom alone. I don't mind if he lives as he pleases, but I wish he would at least listen to important matters. It shouldn't be something to just brush off lightly. After all, he said he would protect me. "I get that it's tough, but you and Mom are both women, right? Men don't understand these things. Work it out between yourselves, okay? Besides, now that we have a child, you should try to get along better for the kid's sake. Mom is her grandmother, and in the end, this isn't my issue. It's between you and Mom. Sort it out yourselves." I was speechless. How can he say that matters involving his mother and wife are none of his concern? The only reason I could cope with Aretha, no matter how terrible she was because I had Sid as my ally. Does he even realize that he was my hope? Feeling like my lifeline had been cut, losing what I thought was my most reliable support, I felt immensely lost. I never wanted to see Aretha's face again, but we are supposed to have a baby presentation party at her house this weekend. I didn't want to go through with it in this state. I wanted to complain, but stopped myself when my daughter started crying. That night, after putting my energetic daughter to sleep, I went to bed, only to find Sid already sleeping peacefully. Looking at Sid's sleeping face, which I once thought was cute, I now felt a sense of helplessness and irritation. I felt like throwing a rock or a pie at him.
No, Lily.
Huh? For a moment, I doubted my ears, but Sid kept muttering Lily in his sleep. A flower? That's unlikely. A person's name? Then who?
I told you, you're the one I love. Yeah, cute, so cute,
he said with a smile on his face. I couldn't believe it, but considering Sid's recent cold behavior and his late returns, one possibility came to mind. Instinctively, I reached for Sid's phone. It was easy to peek into the unlocked old phone, and then I found it. A photo of Sid cheek to cheek with an unknown woman and their intimate, indecent email exchanges that suggested a deep relationship, and they were planning to meet soon. It didn't seem like a past affair that had ended. I wish I didn't have to deal with all this bad news, I muttered, teary-eyed, but Sid didn't wake up. That was good. More than being shocked about the affair, I was overwhelmed with a sense of loss about where my life had gone wrong. Divorce is easy, but what's best for my daughter? Faced with the shocking reality of Aretha's monstrous behavior and Sid's infidelity, my thoughts were scattered, and before I knew it, the weekend and the baby presentation party had arrived. I was treated roughly, as if it were natural, assigned to be a waiter, serving drinks, asked for a trash bag, told to fetch this and that. I couldn't be near my daughter as much as I wanted to. Sid was supposedly watching her, but after his recent behavior, I couldn't help but feel anxious about whether he was actually taking care of her properly. I needed to be strong.
Well, having an older wife, or should I say an anti-wife?
Aretha's voice was loud enough for me to hear from the distant kitchen. The relatives laughed along.
Emily, she is our first grandchild, but she looks so much like her auntie mom. A bit bold-faced. My son works hard, but his wife only works part-time, right? I worry about Emily's future. Hope she doesn't choose an embarrassing path.
Her words, making appetizers out of me and my daughter, were infuriating. But I couldn't cry anymore. I had no expectations from this house. However, hearing those words made me realize something. Had Aretha ever spoken ill of me like this in front of Sid? Most of the relatives seemed to be on Aretha's side, deeply connected with her. It was understandable for Aretha to not hide her true nature around them. But she had never said such things in front of Sid before. Feeling uneasy, I hurried back to the living room. Sid was nowhere to be seen. "Excuse me, where is Sid?" I asked. One of the relatives answered that he had gone to the bathroom a while ago. Aretha, as if I didn't exist, ignored me and continued to enjoy her conversation. I was relieved to see a young girl among the relatives amusing my daughter. As I thought of checking the bathroom, I took my daughter from the girl. Then Sid approached me from behind.
"Oh, what's up? Sorry, but I'm gonna grab a drink."
"What? In the middle of the day?"
"I'm busy with social obligations and work stuff. I squeezed out some time to come here,
It made no sense. Having been in sales myself, I understood to some extent. But even if it's work-related, it's almost unheard of to suddenly have a drinking party in the middle of the day, especially if you've taken a leave, and he could have declined the invitation. So he's meeting her. That woman. Remembering the content of the recent emails, I quickly realized they had planned to meet today. Thinking back, Sid seemed irritated by my interaction with Aretha, and eager to escape the situation. Everything clicked. Enough with the jokes. "Hey, you're having an affair, aren't you?" I couldn't help but confront him, driven by my irritation.
"Huh? No! What?"
Sid let out an incoherent exclamation. As you can tell from my resignation story, I'm not the kind of woman who can easily adapt to situations. Being hurt on a day meant to be joyful, my child insulted, and now an affair? I couldn't just stay silent and broken. All my previous patience was for the sake of a happier future. I had believed in the existence of Sid, but now, betrayed by that very Sid and seeing no future of happiness, I decided to do as I pleased. For the first time in a long while, I felt a string snap inside me. You were calling her name in your sleep the other day. Lily? No need to hide it. My revelation caused all the relatives to stare at us in shock. Aretha also exclaimed, "What is this about?" Even she couldn't ignore me at this moment.
No, I've only been devoted to you. What are you talking about?
Then show me your phone. As I said this, Sid fell silent. He hesitated to show his phone. So, I, irritated, snatched it from his pocket.
Hey, stop it!
Sid was panicking, but it was too late for him. Let him fret on his own. My revelation again caused the relatives to look at us in astonishment.
This is the proof. Aretha, what do you think?
Aretha stood up, approached the phone screen, and silently stared at the evidence of her son's infidelity. I took the opportunity to transfer the images and emails to my phone. My decision was made. No more doubts. I looked at Sid and said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm divorcing you, so please sign the divorce papers."
What?
Aretha also exclaimed in unison with Sid.
What?
It seems it's fine for her son to discard someone, but not to be discarded.
No, what about it? Staying with you in this situation isn't good for the child. I'm better off raising her alone. So, we're separating. You both are no longer needed in my life.
I said it firmly. There was no hesitation. I said it was for my child, but it was also for me. If I'm troubled, my child would sense it and be constrained in her growth. No matter what, I want to be a strong and spirited mother.
By the way, Aretha, you've always laughed at me being part-time, right? But it's not just any part-time job.
Huh? Aretha and Sid exclaimed at the same time. A perfect harmony for the second time today. Like mother, like son.
Well, I'm just an ordinary person, but Sid's company is managed by my childhood friend's family. I got into that cafeteria through connections. I'm going to call that friend now.
And I actually made the call. Indeed, after quitting my previous job.
Why don't you take it easy with a part-time job for a while? We could use someone in our place. Come over.
I was invited to that company by my childhood friend Mal. He is now thriving as an executive there. He knew everything about my situation, as I had been consulting him through emails about my wedding and what followed. Furthermore, our families have had a long-standing relationship with Mal's family. His father, Sonny, the president of the company, always cherished me like his daughter, and was more furious than anyone about my current predicament. That's why he had said,
"If anything happens, we can make arrangements even for your husband."
As soon as my call connected with Mal, I simply said, "I can't do it anymore." Understanding everything, he replied,
"Got it. We'll proceed as planned."
I thanked him and hung up.
What was that about?
Sid asked, flustered.
"Oh, your dismissal has been decided." "What?"
As I answered matter-of-factly, Sid let out a foolish sound. Aretha was also stunned. Well, the flow of events is quite unexpected. Did you know your performance was poor? Plus, with your unauthorized absences and false reports to your superiors, you were already on the list of layoffs, weren't you? The destinations of his unauthorized absences were surely with that woman. Such bold behavior.
What? Don't say nonsense. There's no way I'd be fired that easily.
Of course there are procedures. Maybe the official notice will come out early next week. For poor work attitude, all our interactions and your character have been taken into account. Did you know you weren't fired before just because you were my husband? Sid stood there, pale-faced, hearing the truth for the first time.
That can't be true.
Well, whether it's true or not, you'll find out next week. My decision to divorce you won't change,
so you can escape the dismissal." After saying what I wanted, I felt a sense of relief. However, Aretha couldn't hide her irritation. "Don't you have any human decency?" "Human decency? Yes, I do, but it's something you show towards people. Aretha, you see, everything you do and say is monstrous. In front of you, any decency runs away at full speed." As I spoke those words, Aretha's face turned bright red. The relatives witnessing this started chuckling. It seemed that even the relatives who appeared to side with Aretha had merely been tolerating her attempts to belittle me. Aretha's lack of popularity was unexpectedly transparent. "Well, I'll be going now. I don't want to overstay my welcome in someone else's home." I said this and walked to the entrance, carrying my daughter. I almost forgot something important. "Oh, and tell your mistress I'll be suing for compensation in the divorce court. Congratulations on being jobless." I tossed this over my shoulder with a smile and left my in-laws' house.
"Wait, please, just a minute, I'll apologize. Hey! Hey!"
I could hear Sid's voice behind me, but I didn't care. It was too irritating. Just ignore him. Completely ignore. If he thought he could play two women, he should have been more handsome and reconsidered his life choices. The photos and emails I have transferred from Sid's phone to mine proved useful, making the divorce negotiations straightforward. Years later, as I had declared, I used the compensation from Sid and his mistress, along with my savings, to support my daughter and study nail art. Then I opened a salon with the concept of glamorizing the short nails of moms, and it was a big hit. Now it's grown into a large enterprise with multiple branches. The main store I manage is by appointment only, so it doesn't interfere with childcare. As for Sid, he struggled to secure a full-time job for a long time, and now seems to be living a part-time life. Apparently, due to his lack of skills, his shifts are often reduced, and he earns the minimum wage. What happened with his mistress? It turns out he had hidden his marriage status from her, and now he's being pursued for marital fraud. Unable to pay the compensation ordered in the divorce court, he reportedly had to sell his family home. Aretha, who should have been retired, is now working multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. It's ironic how someone who once ridiculed part-time work is now desperately clinging to it. Speaking of life's unpredictability, back to my story. I actually remarried. The person I married was my childhood friend. I had no intentions of remarrying, especially with the daughter, but he too had failed in his first marriage and was single-handedly raising a daughter he took custody of. This brought us together. As we talked more about parenting, gradually, maybe we can make it work. That's how we decided to remarry. Both sets of parents said, "You've always been close. This seems the most natural," and blessed us with smiles. My daughter and Mal's have a bond like biological sisters, and we live in a lively and happy home. Even though I initially failed and faced moments of uncertainty and mistakes, I believe it's okay as long as I can stand back up again. That's what I think is important. Even if it takes time, I will always get back up, no matter how many times I fall. I aim to be a strong mother, who my daughters will one day say is a mom with guts.